Now that we've explored the difference between absolute and relative frequency, we're going to talk about and take a look at examples where how these statistics can be displayed, and specifically bar graphs and pie charts. So let's take a look at bar graphs. Bar graphs are a common way to display survey results, and this bar graph comes from Angus Reid, and Angus Reid is a large polling company. You'll see it referenced a lot in the news, and it's a Canadian company, and we're going to be doing, or you're going to be doing, a project that takes a look at some of the polls that were conducted by Angus Reid. So this is an opportunity to take a look at how they display some of their data. One of the most common is obviously the bar graph, and the bar graph is used in this case to display percentages. So this percentage here means that 47% believe that it's a very serious problem. Bullying is very serious and should receive more attention than it does. Because it's reported as a percentage, this is called a relative frequency. And that is preferable over reporting absolute frequencies. What is missing on this bar graph is actually a scale. There's no scale here that indicates if the scale is appropriate. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a check to make sure that they're using an appropriate scale, because that is one of the most common ways that bar graphs are used to mislead people. The scale is off. So if I say this is 8%, this little box is 8% in size, then that means that there should be 6 of them approximately fitting into this piece right here, because 6 times 8 is 46. So that's pretty close to 47. So there should be 6 of them. And if I draw a line like that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yep, they have done a good job of using the appropriate scale for this one. So here's another example of a bar graph. Tourists were asked which country they would most like to visit, and then the results were recorded. And because here we're talking about the number of tourists instead of a percentage or a fraction, this is recorded as an absolute frequency. So we can see that most tourists seem to want to visit China because that's the tallest bar. And there is a scale on the left-hand side that has been created, and it's appropriately scaled. In other words, the jumps are all the same distance apart. So I'm just checking to make sure that the bar graph is represented clearly and accurately. So here is another example of a bar graph, and it's the top artists in lyrics so far. And if you take a look, it looks like Drake is definitely the most popular because his bar graph is full. They've actually put down how many views there are. This is reporting absolute frequency. Which means that you're counting how many views there are. Now before we analyze it a little bit further, what's missing is a scale. There's no scale. And if we were to take a look to see if the scale is appropriate, notice the difference between this one and this one is about 1 million. And between this one and this one here is 6 million. But notice how much the bars are different. So these should be very close together. These bars here are very close together, so these numbers should be very close together, and they're not. Whereas really what's close together are these two, and yet these bars don't look the same at all. So this is a place where the actual bar graph is misleading. So if we were to fix that bar graph, this is what it would look like. Notice now that this one and this one are very close together, and there's a scale to show that we're measuring appropriately. So when you're reading bar graphs, it's a really easy thing to not pay attention to the scale. Just look at the picture and say, yeah, Drake is definitely most popular. And it is. He is, but not by a lot. Notice the difference? It's very small if graphed accurately. So it's reader beware. Statistics can be used to mislead. So pie charts are another way to represent data, and we're going to take another look here at another Angus Reid display of data. In this case, we're going back to the bullying of schools, and schools in my province today respond effectively to bullying. That's what people were asked, and then the respondents either agreed or disagreed. And so it's nearly half and half. This gray area is a little bit bigger, so you can see that there's a little touch more people that agree. And pie charts, by very nature, they report relative frequency. And they do that because the whole pie, the whole chart, represents the whole. So you always see the whole, and you're seeing how much agree compared to the whole. So because relative frequency is a comparison, pie charts do that. Now, something to watch for, these percentages should add up to 100%, because 100% is one whole. So when pie charts are used to mislead, sometimes that is not the case. So can you spot what's wrong with this pie chart? Well, it's about the American presidential run back in 2012. There were 3 candidates, Huckabee, Palin, Romney, and if you take a look at what this pie chart says, it should represent 100% of all the candidates, but it is way more than 100%. So something is wrong, and it's hard to interpret what they're trying to illustrate here with this pie chart.